Sai Ram. Today we are going to talk about human health and disease. So under this topic we have various topics like health and disease, types of diseases, infectious diseases, non-infectious diseases and immunity. Today we are going to talk about health and disease and infectious diseases. So what is health? If a person is fit and healthy, he eats a balanced diet, and if he exercises regularly and takes adequate rest, is it enough? Is it called health? Maybe not. Health is related to many different aspects in life. So let's see what all different aspects lead to physical health. Physical health involves good physical activity, eating healthy and taking good rest. That is the physical aspect. The next aspect is social. The social health is if a person is in the society following the norms of the society, that is the social health. If he is maintaining cordial relationships with everybody in the society, that is social health. And then we have mental health. If a person does not have anxiety, is stress free, is not into depression, that causes the mental health. So we have physical, social and mental aspects of the health. So how do we define health? Health is a state of complete physical, mental and social well-being. This is a definition and this has to be written in this format only. It is a state of complete physical, mental and social well-being. So if a person is completely healthy, what happens? He'll be more efficient. The work done by that person is more efficient, leading to more productivity, can contribute better in quality and quantity, and later it gives to a long life. So health will lead to efficiency, productivity and a long life. Next, the factors affecting health. There are a lot of factors that affect health. Let us go one by one quickly. The first is balanced diet. What is balanced diet? If a person eats the right food, like balanced diet includes proteins, carbohydrates and fats in proper amounts, right? And avoiding junk food, eating fruits and vegetables, that is balanced diet. Next is personal hygiene. What is personal hygiene? Keeping our body clean, taking bath every day, brushing our teeth, clipping our nails, washing our hair, basically keeping our body clean. Next is regular exercise. Regular exercises, if a person eats well, is socially fit, mentally fit, but does not exercise well, he is not healthy. So regular exercise is very important. Next is awareness about diseases. Awareness about diseases is very important because proper medical aid at a particular time is very important. Like if a person has malaria, suffering from fever and chills, but considers it to be a normal fever and does not take medical help, it can lead to complications. So awareness about diseases are also very important. Next is vaccinations. When do the people usually get vaccinations done? In childhood. Why are vaccinations important? They are important because they develop our immunity. Antibodies in our body are produced. So vaccination at the appropriate age and time are important. Next is proper waste disposal. If we don't dispose the waste, if the waste is left at home, what happens? Microorganisms multiply, leading to diseases at home. So we don't keep waste at home and throw it in the street. Is that healthy? No. If we throw the waste in the streets, it causes diseases in the community. The waste piles up in the community, leading to stagnation, microorganism multiplication, and then leading to disease. Next is control of vectors. So what are vectors? Here we are going to talk about 2 points. That's one is vectors, another is pathogen. First is a pathogen. What is a pathogen? Pathogen is the causative organism of the disease. Pathogen is the one which causes the disease, whereas vector is the one that will carry the pathogen. It carries the pathogen, and this is the causative. It causes the disease. The causative organism is called pathogen. The one which carries the pathogen is vector. So what are vectors? Vectors are usually mosquitoes and houseflies. So to control mosquitoes and houseflies is very important. We should take care that there is no stagnation of water anywhere. We use mosquito nets and mosquito repellents to control them. Next is hygiene of food and water resources. Hygiene of food and water resources is very important because if food and water is contaminated, this will lead to a varied kind of diseases. So these are basically the factors that affect the health. Next, let's see. Next, let's see what is disease. We spoke about health. Health, definition and factors affecting health. Now what is a disease? The name itself suggests dis-ease. There's lack of ease, there's lack of comfort. Why? Because of function of a single organ or an organ system is adversely affected, leading to signs and symptoms. Organs, we all know we have different organs in our body. So functions of these organs are affected. Or organ systems. What are organ systems? It can be digestive system, respiratory system, circulatory system. Any of the system could be affected, showing signs and symptoms. That is disease. Diseases are classified as infectious and non-infectious. So what are infectious diseases that spread from one person to another person? Like common cold and cough, and then we have typhoid, malaria, amoebiasis. These are all infectious diseases that spread. What are non-infectious diseases? Non-infectious diseases are person specific. They do not spread, like cataract, cardiac attack, AIDS, cancer, autoimmune disorders. So today we are going to talk about infectious diseases. So today we are speaking about common diseases in humans. How are they classified? They are classified as, based upon the organisms, they are classified into 5 types. The first is bacterial, then viral, fungal, protozoal and helminthial. Based on the organism that is causing the disease or based on the pathogen that is causing the disease, we are classifying the infectious diseases. The first is bacterial. What is bacteria? Bacteria is a microorganism that can cause disease. So bacterial diseases are typhoid and pneumonia. We are going to speak about typhoid and pneumonia. Next is viral. Virus is actually neither kind of a alive or a dead organism. It lives dormant in the environment. It doesn't multiply. It doesn't increase in size. But once it enters the host body, it starts multiplying. It grows in number. That is virus. Under viral disease, we are going to talk about rhinitis. Next is fungal. Fungus we know, yeast and molds. And the disease we talk about is ringworm. Protozoans. What are protozoans? Protozoans are unicellular microorganisms. Usually they are known for their mobility. They keep moving inside the host body because they have cilia or flagella to move. Under protozoan diseases, we are going to talk about amoebiasis and malaria. And then we have helminthial infections. What are helminths? Helminths are parasitic worms. They are not microscopic. As they grow big in size, they are visible to our eyes. So under helminthial infections, we are going to talk about ascariasis and filariasis. So this is the basic information about infectious diseases. They are classified based on the organisms that cause or the pathogen that cause the infection. They are classified as five varieties based on the organisms, and these are the diseases. So let's talk about each of them individually. The first is typhoid, caused by bacteria. So what is the pathogen? Pathogen we spoke about. It is the organism that is causing the disease. So what is the pathogen in typhoid? It is Salmonella typhi. The name of the organism itself talks about the disease. Salmonella typhi causes typhoid. Next, mode of transmission. What is mode of transmission? The way it spreads from one person to another person. That is called mode of transmission. So what is the mode of transmission here? It is orofecal. What does it mean? Oral cavity. That is where we take the food in. So once the food that is contaminated with Salmonella typhi is taken by somebody, that's how the infection gets into the body. And where does it go? It goes into the stomach and the intestines. So it is basically a digestive system disease. That is, the mode of transmission for any digestive disease is orofecal, and this organism comes out of the feces of the person. Once the person excretes the feces, it comes out of the feces, again a housefly or a mosquito carries it and contaminates the water or food around. Okay, that is about that mode of transmission. Next is organ present. Once it enters into the host or the human body, where does it stay? As it is digestive system, it stays in small intestine. This is important point. In typhoid, Salmonella typhi stays in small intestine in a human body. Talking about the symptoms, any digestive system disease, there are few tips to be remembered. First is the mode of transmission. Mode of transmission for any digestive disease is orofecal. And there are 4 symptoms which are common to all digestive diseases. They are fever, because it's an infection. Any digestive system related disease has fever. Another is constipation, then loss of appetite and abdominal pain. These are the common symptoms for all digestive diseases. Apart from this, there are few specific to typhoid. What are they? They are high fever in the afternoons. This is very important point in typhoid. High fever in the afternoon and rashes on the abdomen. Rashes on the abdomen and high fever in the afternoons are typical of typhoid disease. If a person has high fevers in the afternoon and rashes on the abdomen, it is for sure that that person is suffering from typhoid. Why does rash appear on the abdomen? Because Salmonella typhi is living in the small intestine. So it slowly starts breaking the blood vessels or the capillaries that are present in the intestine, leading to this rashes on the abdomen. So what happens if we leave this person like this? If this person thinks that he is suffering from normal fever and does not get checked and leaves like this, it can lead to what? It can lead to, in severe conditions, it can lead to intestinal rupture and death, because it's going on eating up the intestinal walls, intestinal blood vessels, and the person is not getting any treatment done, leading to rupture and death. So what is the test? The test here is Widal test, very important point. The test for Salmonella typhi or test for typhoid is Widal test. Okay. How do they do Widal test? They take the feces of the person and check under microscope. If they find Salmonella typhi in the feces, that means the person is suffering from typhoid, right? There's an interesting story here about a lady called Mary. This was at the time when typhoid was very dreadful. So what happened was, there was this community where almost everybody was infected with typhoid, and people were not understanding why they were getting typhoid. They could not trace the source of infection, and they finally traced it to this lady called Mary, who was cooking in all the homes in the community. What she was doing was, she was having typhoid, but she was not washing her hands and cooking from home to home and spreading the disease. As she is suffering from typhoid, especially when she was using the toilet, she was not washing her hands and going and cooking in home after home, spreading the disease. So it is very important to wash your hands properly every single time. So let's revise about typhoid. First thing is, the pathogen is Salmonella typhi. Any digestive disease, again repeating, orofecal is the root, right? Organ present, where is Salmonella typhi present? It is present in small intestine. What are the symptoms? 4 important symptoms: abdominal pain, constipation, loss of appetite, and then fever, right? Fever in typhoid is high fever in afternoons and rashes on the abdomen. What is the test? Widal test. That's about typhoid. I hope it is clear. Next disease let's talk about. Next is pneumonia. This is also by bacteria. So what's the pathogen? Pathogen is the causative organism. What is the causative organism for pneumonia? Streptococcus pneumoniae. It's a bacteria. And Haemophilus influenzae. Haemophilus influenzae by itself, it cannot cause the disease. Along with Streptococcus pneumoniae, it causes pneumonia. So after the pathogen, mode of transmission. How does it transmit? Direct contamination is by aerosol droplets. What are aerosol droplets? For example, I am suffering from cold or cough. If I sneeze or cough, the mucus or the saliva contains the microorganisms. So if I sneeze, I sneeze directly onto a next person who is standing next to me or sitting next to me. So this is direct contamination. If I don't cover my nose and mouth and cough or sneeze, the infection is directly contaminating the next person. That is direct contamination. The next is indirect contamination. What is indirect contamination? Here I sneeze onto a pen or a book and give it to the next person. That person holds that item or the object and then rubs it over his nose or mouth, and infection transmits indirectly. So there are two kinds of contamination, aerosol droplets or through objects which are contaminated. That's mode of transmission. Organs present. So once the Streptococcus pneumoniae enters the human body, where does it live? It goes to the alveoli. What are alveoli? Alveoli are present in the lungs. They are air sacs. What do? They exchange the respiratory gases. Carbon dioxide and oxygen are exchanged in alveoli. So they go and sit in alveoli. And what do? They start collecting fluid. As you see in the picture, they start collecting fluid or water in the lungs. So what are the symptoms? Symptoms, because it's an infection, fever will be there, right? And why chills? Because there's collection of fluid. Because there's liquid, there are chills in the body. And then cough, because it's a respiratory system disease. Because the nose, throat and lungs are affected, there's cough. And then there's headache, which is natural. So that's about pneumonia. There's another trip again. Here there's another tip. The thing is, aerosol droplet is the mode of transmission for any respiratory disease. For digestive disease, it is orofecal transmission. For any respiratory disease, it is aerosol droplets, either through direct contamination or indirect contamination, right? And then cough will be there because it is respiratory system. So that's about pneumonia. So we have finished with bacterial infections. Now let's see what are the next infections. Next is virus. We spoke virus is neither dead nor alive. It lives in the environment and affects a person and then it starts multiplying. So now we are going to talk about rhinitis. What is rhinitis? Rhinitis is common cold. So what is the pathogen involved here? Pathogen is rhinovirus, right? And mode of transmission. Same, rhinitis involving nose, throat and the respiratory system. So the mode of transmission is aerosol droplets. Any respiratory disease, mode of transmission is aerosol droplets. Organs present. This is very interesting. In common cold, only nose and throat are affected. Lungs are not involved. It is not a lung related disease. It is common cold which is restricted to nose and throat only. What are the symptoms? You can see in the picture, there's itchy red eyes and there's sneezing, congestion and running nose, discharge from the nose. And then there could be sore throat, because sometimes what we do is, in cold, we either take out the mucus, we take it out, and or sometimes we take it in. When we take it in, this whatever discharge goes inside our throat, it irritates the throat and that causes cough. It is called post-nasal drip. The nasal drip which has to go in forward, it's going backward, causing irritation in the throat. So that is post-nasal drip. So about rhinitis, caused by rhinovirus, affects respiratory system except for lungs. Transmission, aerosol droplets. What are the symptoms? We all know the common symptoms of cold. What are they? Nasal congestion, discharge. It lasts for 7 days, important point here, right? And then sore throat and hoarseness of voice. So that's about virus. And then fungal. Under fungal disease, we are going to talk about ringworm. Here there are number of pathogens involved. They are Microsporum, Trichophyton and epidermophyton. What is epidermo? Epidermis means skin. So this particular disease is related to skin. Okay. So mode of transmission, how does it spread? This fungi are present in the soil. So if a person walks in the soil with barefoot, without shoes or without any footwear, these fungus will get into the foot of a person and enters into the body. Or it could be spreading by using infected towels or combs of a person who is already suffering from the disease. If we use that person's combs or towels, it can spread. So once it enters the body, where does it stay? It stays in the skin folds, any of the skin folds. It could be between our fingers, between the arm and forearm, or the folds of the stomach, in the groin, folds of the legs. Anywhere there is a fold in the body, they will stay there. Okay. So why they stay there and start growing there? Because any fold of the body has moisture. We sweat. We sweat in the folds of the body. So moisture is more and there is heat. Because of that, the fungi start growing there. What are the symptoms? This is what a ringworm disease look like. It is round, circular in shape. It is dry, scaly lesion. It is present on various parts of the body, as we spoke, in any folds of the body, and it can be present in the scalp. Why scalp? We sweat in the scalp, right? So wherever there is sweat, wherever there is fold, there is ringworm infection possibility. And it spreads from a person who is already infected through by using his comb. If he has a scalp infection, it spreads to another person. So there is intense itching in this situation, right? And grows in heat and moisture, we already spoke about. So that's about ringworm. Multiple fungi cause this. Present in the folds, very important point. Dry lesion, very important. Circular in shape, important. And intense itching, that's an important point. So that's about fungal infections. Next is protozoal infections, important because amoebiasis can be one of the important questions. So amoebiasis is caused by, what is the causative agent? What is the pathogen? Entamoeba histolytica. Amoebiasis is caused by Entamoeba histolytica. Mode of transmission, orofecal. So orofecal means it is a digestive system disease. Any orofecal transmission disease is digestive system. Before we spoke about typhoid, which is digestive system, the same here. Okay. And the carrier is housefly. What is carrier also called as? Vector. Right? Vector is the one which carries the pathogen. Okay. So where is it present? It is present in large intestine. Typhoid, it was present in small intestine. Amoebiasis, the organism is present in large intestine of the host body. What are the symptoms? We spoke about the 4 symptoms of any digestive disease. What are they? Abdominal pain, right? And then there's fever, there's constipation, there's loss of appetite. All the 4 are present here also. And the symptom that is specific to amoebiasis, please note carefully, the symptom that is specific to amoebiasis is cramps and stools with mucus and blood. Bloody stools are very important question. Bloody stools are seen in amoebiasis and it lasts for 7 days. In typhoid, we did not speak about blood coming out. We just saw rashes. But in amoebiasis, there's bloody stools because they're present in large intestine, 1 point. And another thing is they keep moving. So they keep rupturing this intestinal walls, leading to loss of blood. So that's about amoebiasis. So the organism is Entamoeba histolytica, orofecal transmission, present in the large intestine. All the 4 symptoms which we spoke about, and the extra point here is stools with mucus and blood lasting for 7 days. That's about amoebiasis. Next protozoan disease is malaria. This is also one of the very important questions. It could be one of your main questions in the examination. Malaria, very important. We have 2 life cycles of Plasmodium. Let's see how it goes. So what is the pathogen? Usually we say that malaria is caused by mosquitoes. That is a very wrong concept. Malaria is not caused by mosquitoes. Malaria is caused by Plasmodium. That's a protozoan. There are different types of Plasmodium. Plasmodium vivax, Plasmodium malaria and Plasmodium falciparum. Why it is very fatal when Plasmodium falciparum is there? because it says they say that it affects the brain. So other than falciparum, if it's only malaria and vivax, it just causes normal malaria. So the pathogen in malaria is Plasmodium. So what is the vector? Vector is mosquito. Mosquito is carrying this Plasmodium inside its body and moving from one person to another person, infecting them. So vector is mosquito, pathogen is Plasmodium, right? So where is it present in human body? Once it enters the human body, it directly goes to the liver cells. In the liver cells they multiply and then they go to RBCs. They attack RBCs. So liver cells and RBCs are the organs that are present in the human host. That's where Plasmodium goes and lives. And in mosquitoes they live in the gut and salivary glands. What are the symptoms? Symptoms, because it's an infection, there's fever. Fever with chills in the night is the most important feature of malaria. Fever with chills and fever in the night with sweats, right? Because there are chills and fever, the person will start shivering and nausea. There are three important symptoms, right? One is fever with chills and sweating in the night. The fever will lead to shivering and there's nausea. Only three symptoms to remember in malaria. So again, let's quickly go through this Plasmodium that is causing the disease. And what is the vector? Vector is mosquito, right? It is not the pathogen, it is a vector. Vector is mosquito. It goes to the human body, lives in liver cells and RBCs, and the symptoms, three important symptoms. So next, let's go to the next slide. There are two hosts, human host and mosquito host. We spoke about this already. In human, what happens? The Plasmodium is being carried by a mosquito, right? So it enters the human body as sporozoid through a mosquito bite. One important point here is only a female Anopheles mosquito can cause malaria, because only female Anopheles mosquitoes can suck blood. When we have a mosquito bite, it's only a female Anopheles mosquito biting us or female mosquito biting us. When a female Anopheles mosquito bites us, we can get malaria. Alright? So in which form it enters? It enters a human body in the form of a sporozoite. Okay? So once a mosquito bites, the Plasmodium is entering into our body in the form of sporozoite. Important point. Next, directly it goes to liver cells. So as a mosquito bites us, through the blood, the Plasmodium in the form of a sporozoite is going to the liver cells, and there it starts just multiplying. There are no male and female gametes here. It's just multiplication, just division by asexual reproduction. So in the liver they just divide, right? And as they increase in number in the liver, they rupture the liver cells. And then where do they go? They go into RBCs. They go and attack the RBCs. What are RBCs? Red blood cells. So they attack liver cells, they rupture the liver cells, go into RBCs. They break the RBCs. Then again in RBCs, they go attack the RBCs, again starts multiplying in RBCs also. In RBCs also, they just multiply. There are no male and female here. And as they increase in number in RBCs, what happens? They rupture the RBCs also. Here there's an important point. As they rupture the RBCs, they release something called hemozoin. Hemozoin is a toxin. Because it's an RBC, hemo is blood, right? Related to iron, right? Hemozoin is a toxin. Hemozoin is released when they rupture RBCs, and this hemozoin causes the chills with fever in malaria. This is very important point. And then once they rupture RBCs, where do they stay? They stay in the flowing blood in the body. There they divide as male and female gametes, right? Let us quickly go through again. Once a mosquito bites, how do they enter? They enter as sporozoites. Then where do they go? They go into liver. There they divide. They rupture the liver cells. Then they attack RBCs. There again they divide, right? And they rupture RBCs also, releasing hemozoin. Two important points. Enter the human body as sporozoites and release a toxin called hemozoin. This hemozoin causes fever and chills. and then they separate as male and female gametes in the blood. So this is basically the life cycle of Plasmodium in a human body. So this is how a mosquito bites and the sporozoites are entering into the blood of a human, right? And then they directly go and attack the liver cells. These thin flagella like structures are the sporozoites. They go and enter the liver cells and starts multiplying in the liver cells, right? And then they rupture the liver cells, goes and attacks RBCs. What do they do in RBCs? They multiply again in RBCs and rupture the RBCs also, releasing hemozoin. This is the basic life cycle of Plasmodium. Enters blood, enters liver, enters RBCs, release hemozoin. I hope it is clear. Next is life cycle of Plasmodium in mosquito. In human it is over, right? In mosquito, how do they stay? So when a female Anopheles mosquito bites a person who is infected with malaria already, okay, what happened? In the person already it attacked the liver and RBCs and it's staying in the blood in the form of male and female gametes. A female Anopheles mosquito is coming and biting that person who already has malaria, okay. So this will take up the gametes. The male and female gametes are already present in that person's blood. Then they go to the gut of the mosquito. As the mosquito bites an infected person, the male and female gametes go into the gut or stomach of the mosquito and there fertilization of the male and female takes place, leading to formation of sporozoites. These sporozoites go and stay in the salivary glands of the mosquito. That's where they mature, they become big. So basically male and female gametes are entering by blood sample that is taken from the infected person, and then there's fertilization in the stomach or gut, forming the sporozoites which are babies, and they mature in the salivary glands and stay in the salivary glands. So next time again this mosquito goes and bites a person who is not infected, which stage they are going? They are going to go in the sporozoid stage. So person who is not infected, the Plasmodium is going to go in sporozoid stage, right? If a person who is infected, if a mosquito bites, the male and female gametes enter into the mosquito. So that's basically, the sporozoites will enter a normal human who is not infected. We saw the life cycle in the humans and the life cycle in mosquito. So that's basically about malaria. Now the last infections are helminthial infections. What are helminths? Helminths are not microscopic, they are macroscopic parasitic worms, right? They are visible, a grown helminth is visible to naked eye. So we are talking about Ascariasis. What is the causative agent? It is Ascaris. It's a round worm. That's how a grown round worm looks like. So the one which is causing infection, if it grows inside our intestine, this big, this is how it looks, this big. It's visible to any human eye. So mode of transmission here is orofecal. So you very well know what it is. It is a digestive disease, orofecal, right? Orofecal excreted through feces of an infected person. Mode of transmission of Ascariasis is orofecal. Okay. Next is, where does it stay? It stays in intestine as a parasite. It can be small intestine or large intestine. The first digestive disease is typhoid. There it was small intestine. The next is amoebiasis. It was large intestine. Ascariasis, it can be either in small or large intestine. Symptoms. What are the 4 symptoms? Abdominal pain, loss of appetite, constipation, fever, right? In amoebiasis, we saw there will be bloody stools. In typhoid, we saw fever, high fever in the afternoons, right, and rashes on the abdomen. In Ascariasis, apart from the 4 symptoms, what are the symptoms here? There will be bleeding, internal bleeding, because the worms are so big, they start eating up the intestines, causing intestinal bleeding. Bleeding internally, it will lead to anemia, loss of blood. And then as they grow so big, imagine 100 or 200 of them inside our intestine, they can block the intestinal passage. If they grow, they are not treated, if the disease is not to be medically treated, left alone, it can block the intestinal passage leading to death. So ascariasis caused by Ascaris, orophycal root present in the intestine, all the 4 symptoms, and one extra symptom is internal bleeding. That's about ascariasis. Next is filariasis or elephantiasis. This is caused by the pathogen is Wuchereria bancrofti or Wuchereria malayi. It's a difficult pronunciation. Wuchereria. Wuchereria is the pathogen. Wuchereria bancrofti or malayi. What is the mode of transmission? It is like malaria. A female mosquito is the vector, right? Where does it go and stay in the human body? In the lymphatics. It's a different disease. It's not respiratory. It's neither respiratory nor digestive. It's going at attacking the lymphatic vessels of lower limbs. Okay, important point. Where does the Wuchereria go and stay? It stays in the lymphatic vessels of the lower limbs. Symptoms. The symptoms develop slowly over a period of so many years. This pathogen just goes and sits in the lymphatic vessels. Slowly, after some years, there will be swelling of the organ or the leg. It swells up over a period of time. In so many years, it becomes like a elephant leg. That's why it's called elephantiasis, right? Infection of the lymphatic vessels will lead to the swelling up of the vessels, deformity of groin and the limbs. That's about elephantiasis or filariasis. Organ is Wuchereria, mode of transmission is mosquito, present in the lymphatics. There is a slow developing disease, chronic disease, causing inflammation leading to elephant-like leg. So this is basically about all the infectious diseases in one table. If you have just this table, read it every day, you are thorough with the infectious diseases. So what is the first one? It is typhoid, right? This typhoid, amoebiasis and ascariasis, right, which are light brown in color. These 3 are digestive diseases. All of them mode of transmission is orophycal, right? They are present in, here it is small intestine, here it is large intestine. Ascariasis, any of the intestine. Symptoms, all the 4 symptoms. In typhoid, what is it? Fever in the afternoons and rashes in the abdomen. In amoebiasis, there's bloody stools, and in ascariasis, there's internal bleeding with anemia. So that's about digestive diseases. Then we have respiratory diseases, which are light green in color. Pneumonia, rhinitis. Pneumonia, we know aerosol droplets for both of them, mode of transmission. In pneumonia, they go and live in the alveoli. In rhinitis, very important point, it does not affect lungs. It's only nose and throat. Rhinitis is common cold, right? And then symptoms, fever with cough, because cough, respiratory infection, chills and headache. Here, there's nasal congestion and discharge. And then we have ringworm that affects the skin, present in the skin folds, causes round lesions. And malaria, we know through female mosquito, lives in liver cells and RBCs in humans. What are the 3 symptoms? Fever with chills, shivering, and then nausea. That's about malaria. Filariasis, it's completely different. It affects the lymphatic system. Lymphatic vessels of the lower limbs are affected. What happens? The limb swells up like an elephant leg. So if this whole table is remembered, your infectious diseases are covered. Here we are going to talk a little bit about the prevention. First is food and water. Food and water which are polluted causes typhoid, amoebiasis and ascariasis. Basically, food and water in pollution leads to digestive diseases, right? So how do we prevent it? We prevent it by proper disposal of waste. Waste should be properly disposed, not thrown on the streets, which can cause multiplication or multiplying of microorganisms on the streets, which can make the vectors like houseflies carry the infection and pollute the food and water. Then proper disposal of excreta also, no open defecation. Then periodic cleaning and disinfection of water reservoirs. Why do we clean water reservoirs? Water reservoirs to avoid mosquitoes and houseflies. So that's about food and water contamination prevention. Next is airborne or pneumonia and cold. We spoke how aerosol droplets will cause the spreading of this. So how do we avoid it? Close contact with people who has infection. And if we have the infection, close our nose and mouth so that we protect others from getting the infection. And to touch the belongings of the people who have the infection has to be avoided. Insect vectors. Malaria and filariasis, we spoke how mosquitoes and houseflies carry the disease causing pathogens. So how this can be avoided? By avoiding the stagnation of water, very important. Stagnant water will breed the mosquitoes and houseflies. All the larvae are born in the stagnant water only. So in residential areas, all the stagnant water has to be removed. And cleaning of water coolers, because water coolers also have stagnant water. So periodic cleaning of the water coolers and use of mosquito nets and repellents. Another important point is use of Gambusia fish in ponds. Gambusia fish eats upon mosquitoes and larvae. So they can be put in a nearby streams and ponds so that mosquitoes are controlled. And then spraying of insecticides in ditches, drains and swamps. We can't avoid drainage, right? Drain areas are present everywhere. So insecticides have to be sprayed there. So that's pretty much about today's topic. So we have a small questionnaire here. Let's see what it is. The first question is define health. We spoke how health is not just about the physical health. There are different aspects to health. So please define accordingly what is health. Then what is disease and types of diseases. We spoke about how disease is not being at ease. So what exactly is a disease, please define, and the two types of diseases. Then what is the test done to detect typhoid? We spoke about this test where the excreta of a person is checked for Salmonella typhi. So what is the test? Name two diseases caused by protozoans. Protozoans are unicellular, which have cilia and flagella keep moving. So what are the disease caused by these protozoans? What is the vector in malaria? We spoke about how Plasmodium causes malaria. So what is that vector which carries this Plasmodium, right? We want to know the vector in malaria. What are the two hosts in which life cycle of Plasmodium is completed in malaria? We spoke extensively about their life cycle in two hosts. What are the two hosts in malaria? In which disease lymphatics of lower limbs are affected? We just saw how the lower limb becomes like an elephant limb. So what is that disease? So that brings our topic for today to an end. In the next class, we are going to talk about immunity and then non-infectious diseases. Thank you so much. Sai Ram.